Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Jillian Graber, Executive Director of Protect PT, and we wanted to continue our conversation yesterday that we had with George Alexander. He's the author of Dragon Pipe Diary. We got cut a little short yesterday because of technical difficulties. I apologize for that. But there were some questions that came about after our video, and we wanted to be able to answer those to the public. So we have George again. Thank you so much for sharing your information again with us, George. And I'm going to go ahead and just talk about a couple things that came up after our conversation yesterday. And what we'll do is probably just tack this onto yesterday's presentation. So the first question that kind of came up, and I think we got cut up during this question, it was talking more about the sinkholes that happened in eastern Pennsylvania. So do you want to speak a little bit about that, George?
Sure. So there are some areas of Pennsylvania that have limestone beneath them, often quite soluble in water, and so caves form and voids form. And when those collapse, if the ground above them gets thin enough, they form a sinkhole. Very common in parts of Chester County where the pipeline goes through. There are other parts of the state where they're common too. But in Chester County, there's a part of the roads department that spends a lot of their time filling in places where sinkholes have damaged the streets. Well, this drilling for this pipeline, a lot of it has been installed by drilling, has hit some of those pockets and caused the ground to collapse, creating sinkholes. Some of them have been pretty serious. You may have heard of Lisa Drive near Exton in Chester County. There, a whole series of sinkholes opened up, including one that exposed the active Mariner East 1 pipeline when they were drilling for Mariner East 2, and left it suspended in midair in a hole, a very dangerous situation. And so the Public Utility Commission came in, inspected it, and said, this must stop. You have to stop work here until that pipeline is secure again. And it took months for them to make the ground stable enough to resume work there. Well, recently there have been a series of sinkholes both in that general location and in Delaware County as well. And possibly in other parts of the state, although I'm not as familiar with those. And now recently, not too far from the Lisa Drive sinkholes, there's been another series of sinkholes that have cropped up. And they look to be very dangerous in terms of their possible impact on other pipelines in the vicinity, including the Mariner East 1 pipeline, the active Mariner East 1. But so far, the Public Utility Commission hasn't taken action, and Sunoco has just been pouring cement into those holes and filling them up, and that's the current situation. I think it's unsafe. Two of the sinkholes were right on the property where a pumping station is, within a few feet of, not a pumping station, but a valve station, really, within a few feet of the valve station. And not only is that a very vulnerable place in the first place for the pipeline, but also if there were an accident there, that would conceivably put that valve out of service. So in order to shut off the flow to that accident, you would have to go quite a few miles upstream and downstream of that leak to shut valves there. So it would double the amount of material that might escape. So that continues to be a serious problem. Several of the places where work still needs to be done is in that kind of limestone terrain, and it remains to be seen if they'll be able to do it safely.
Yeah, yesterday one of the things that really struck me was that there is this just the procedure that you were talking about with, when an accident happens or when a leak is detected, so 10%, you had mentioned 10% of the pressure could be lost, and they really wouldn't notice that difference. But anything more than that, there's a series of events that has to happen. And it seems to me that the homeowner is kind of one of the last people to be to be notified when something like that happens. And certainly, how would you evacuate when you can't start your car? You can't use a cell phone. You can't flashlight. How do you go about doing that? And especially, I want to emphasize too, this is not your typical pipeline. I know, George, you said that yesterday, but I think people really get confused because there are so many different pipelines out there. This is not your typical pipeline. This is a liquid natural gas pipeline under a tremendous amount of pressure, and it's chilled to make that gas into liquid. And this is going to create that vapor cloud like you showed us yesterday. And so, do you think that the measures that have been put in place are adequate when it comes to dealing with emergency incidents?
No, they clearly are not. And that's been the focus of a lot of us in this part of Pennsylvania for a long time, for years. There is no safe way to evacuate people or protect them from the potential flammable cloud that would be created by a rupture or even a sizable leak. And I think it's worth emphasizing that this pipeline, if you look at the pipelines of Pennsylvania,
Mm-hmm.
the pipelines of Mariner East are by far the most dangerous ones in terms of potential fatalities. It's possible that if Falcon is completed in Western Pennsylvania, that it would be even worse in that respect. But short of that, the other pipelines, which are either local distribution of natural gas or gathering of natural gas from wells or transmission of natural gas across the state, none of those pipelines are anywhere near as dangerous. The most dangerous kind is the transmission kind, but if it's just natural gas, it's not nearly as dangerous as this, which is a transmission pipeline, as you say, for natural gas liquids, which are under high pressure, highly volatile, highly explosive.
Yeah.
So there is no emergency measure in place that really addresses the potential disaster that this could cause.
So we've got inadequate emergency measures. We have a pipeline that is not being used for utility. So this is not natural gas that's heating people's homes. This is not natural gas that is used in businesses. This is simply natural gas for the purpose of exporting to make plastic overseas. So
That's right. Yeah.
the benefit to Pennsylvanians is very low, if non-existent at all, because we are taking all the risk and we're not reaping any of the benefit. So I just want to emphasize that, because I think a lot of people, when they hear, oh, you're talking about this pipeline and you're talking about the dangers. Well, we need that natural gas, but in this case, that argument is not valid. And so I just want to mention that. Another thing that I wanted to mention, we had a couple more questions, and so we'll
Jillian,
talk.
could I jump in there for a moment
Sure,
before you move on?
absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I think there are 2 points to be made about what you just said. The first one is this is not natural gas. This is what they call natural gas liquids, and it's very confusing that they use that name for these gases, but it's ethane, propane, and butane, none of which are natural gas, and none of which are used in generating plants and that sort of stuff. Sunoco, the second point is Sunoco will try to claim that there are benefits for Pennsylvania, and there are two things that they point out as potential benefits. One is some of the material flowing through this pipeline is propane, and some propane is used for home heating and cooking in Pennsylvania. And that is certainly true. Whether any of the propane coming through this pipeline actually ends up in Pennsylvania is completely unclear, but let's say that some of it does. We might be talking as much as 2% of what goes through the pipeline, probably less than that. Also, ethane, they will say that ethane, which is the main thing going through here, can be used for generating electricity. And that's true as far as it goes. There's a new plant that recently opened up, which can use either natural gas or ethane to run its generators. And they proved in January that it's possible to use a blend of natural gas and ethane to run in that plant. But ethane costs multiple times the price of natural gas, so it is not used for generating electricity. Could be used for generating electricity. It has been used as a test and a publicity stunt for generating electricity, but that is not the purpose of this pipeline. So if Sunoco claims that it's propane for our homes or ethane for our electrical plants, that's completely bogus.
Yeah, and I think it's important for us as folks that know about these types of things, advocacy organizations like Protect PT, who, we try to get the factual information from the DEP, from the state agencies, and just let people know about it. That it's important, and folks like you who are blogging about this constantly to make sure that people are aware of these issues. There are folks that are not going to agree with our point of view, but at the end of the day, if you have to be evacuated from your home, that's a pretty serious thing. And so I just wanted to address that. So thank you so much for doing that so thoroughly. I think that your points are so valid. We have another question. The question was, does PHMSA play any role, or at least not consider, or are these not considered transmission pipelines? Do they have some oversight of the PUC for safety?
Yeah, so PHMSA, which is the Pipeline Hazardous Materials something administration, I can't remember the full,
I think
anyway, it's
safety.
the federal agency that oversees pipelines. And it only oversees them in operation. So it does have a role in overseeing the operational parts, but not the construction of this pipeline. And in practical terms, PHMSA can delegate its responsibilities to state agencies. And in this case, it does delegate its responsibilities to the Public Utility Commission, the Pennsylvania PUC. The PUC, in its role as basically PHMSA's agent, has to follow PHMSA's rules. And so in that sense, PHMSA has some oversight over these pipelines. That has some benefits, but relatively few. But some of the rules that PHMSA has that have to be, regulations that have to be met, are important to us. Things having to do with pipeline inspection and maintenance, and with the filing of safety plans. So in those respects, it's important that PHMSA is involved.
Great. Thank you so much for that, George. And so I want, one of the other things that we really touched upon briefly yesterday, but I felt like it was something that needed to be highlighted. And this is particularly going on in our community, and it actually happened before. I was shocked to find out that Frac Tracker actually, with the Falcon pipeline, had another incident where they were trying to, a housing developer was trying to build homes on the pipeline easement to me, this seems really nuts. But I wanted to highlight that because that was one of the reasons why we actually asked you to come back. You know, we did a series with the Halt Mariner Now campaign, and you can go to the Halt Mariner Now website and actually check that out. There was a couple different webinars. George, you were the guest on one of those, but we wanted to have you back because when we found out about this development happening in our community, we were shocked. And so we wanted to make sure that we could highlight for folks exactly what the safety risks are to this particular proposed community. So I want to mention this is the Oakwood Manor community, and this is proposed. This is at the Planning Commission in Penn Township right now, that has been proposed to go off of Mellon Road and Claridge Road in Penn Township. And you can see here, I have a picture of it. This is really close to the Westmoreland County Community College, and there's some homes right here. But this image shows you the overlay of the proposed housing development in the cul-de-sac, and you can see there's actually a couple different pipelines that are running through this community. The one that goes straight and then makes a quick turn is the Mariner East. So this is a new proposed community that's going to be right on top of the easement for Mariner East, and then there are other utility lines that are straight. So we wanted to mention this because when we found out from our members, so some of our members contacted us and said, you know, we heard about this and we think it's crazy. So we wanted to let you know. So we did a file review. We contacted the township and asked them for the information on the development. We did a review of the development. So we looked at the plans, the technical engineering plans that they had proposed, and we wrote a comment. And we'll go ahead and post that on our website, the comment that we wrote to Penn Township. But basically what it boiled down to is number one, so when housing developments like these are proposed, there is a certain length that you can make a cul-de-sac, and that is really in order for emergency vehicles to be able to get to those homes in the shortest amount of time as possible. And with this particular development, they actually have to extend that length of that road and the cul-de-sac because of the Mariner East pipeline. And so we thought that this was really bonkers because, you know, these some of these backyards are right in the pipeline easement. And this is a Miranda Homes plan, and this is actually not the first time that this developer has planned on a pipeline easement. There's a frac tracker study that was done a couple years ago about the Falcon pipeline. And so, you know, we wrote a comment to the Planning Commission because not only that, but there's no other access road. So, you know, if there was some type of access road which you could potentially get to those people, you know, let's say a break happens right near that, right in that section where where it's longer on that road, you know, those people would be cut off from being able to escape. And there's a high slope on the other side. So it's not like they could, you know, have this access road or that they could, you know, potentially walk away from this. We know from other pipeline incidents, and there was one that happened back in Salem Township, which is only a couple miles from Penn Township, back in 2016, and a gentleman was severely injured, lost his leg and his arm, and you know, really his life has changed for forever. And that was just a general pipeline that was a pipeline that actually corroded at the weld due to this tape that they used. So yesterday you mentioned, you know, the welds and the falsifying of records at the welds. You know, this really gives me a lot more concern because we know that pipelines will tend to leak at the welds. You know, that's where those problems are going to happen. And these records have been falsified with Mariner East, and now we have proposed development on top of this. What would you say to somebody that was in a position to make a decision on this type of plan? How would you say that they would proceed with the decision for this?
Yeah, so I think the people who are in the lower right hand, whose lots are in the lower right hand part of this diagram, they are cut off by the pipeline and they need an alternate way of getting out of there. Um, there are two phases to a rupture of a pipeline like this. In the first instance, a flammable cloud forms. All of the houses that you're showing here could very well be within the flammable cloud, and if it ignited, it would set them all on fire. Um, it, but then there's a second phase, so that's called a flash fire. Then there's a second phase called a jet fire, which is analogous to a blowtorch. It burns continuously until all the material in the pipeline has been released, which in a pipeline like this will take many hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, 18 hours to burn off. During that time, the area of the leak will be completely unapproachable. And therefore, the people who are on one side of it won't be able to cross over if that's their only exit road, and emergency vehicles won't be able to get in. And that's the situation with the people in the lower part of this cul-de-sac. I think it's a very short-sighted and dangerous plan to build this development in this location without any other exit opportunity.
Yeah. And I'm sure that part of the development and part of the selling of these homes will be for the developer to, you know, educate the homeowner, the new homeowner, on the fact that there's an easement. But I wonder if they will fully help them understand what that really means, because if this were me and my family, I certainly wouldn't want to buy a home here. But a lot of people might love the area and want to buy the home, but are they going to fully understand the risks? And I guess that's part of what we're trying to achieve today, is to let folks know the risks and help them understand why this is a poor idea. Because when you buy a home, you have to do a certain amount of research. And so whether these homes are going to be built a year from now or tomorrow, we're hoping that this information will be publicly available, and that given enough time to do some research, that folks will be able to understand exactly what they're living near. These people have an opportunity to say no to this, but the people that are currently on easements really didn't have that opportunity, did they?
Right. Yeah, this is a problem for this pipeline and other pipelines, but particularly this one. Um, the people who have the easement in their yard, they will have to sign off on that as part of the closing process that they go through. But if you've ever been through a home closing, you know that there can be hundreds of signature lines and it can take hours. And the likelihood that somebody gets full disclosure in the sense that we would want them to have it is very low in that situation. And there are all kinds of motivations on the part of the people participating in the process not to spend time on it. And for the people across the road who are still in danger because the rupture would affect a large area, they may not even be required to be notified about the easement on the other side of the road from their property, and therefore they might very well consider a house and never, even in the closing process, be made aware of the pipeline in the vicinity. So
Right.
this is a serious problem. In our part of the world here in southeastern Pennsylvania, there are houses that have become known to be endangered by the pipeline and have basically become unsaleable. Some have just lost value. Some can't find a buyer at any price. And that is something that should be disclosed when someone is considering a piece of property to buy, but it's not being done.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, George. We hear all the time about mortgage brokers and mortgage institutions, financial institutions that are no longer giving mortgages to people that have a lease on their property. And so I don't know, I haven't done any research about if that is the case with a pipeline, but it's certainly something to look into. If you're, if you're one of those folks that maybe wants to put a pipeline or wants to put, a well pad on their property or lease their mineral rights, we're not here to judge people whether they should do that or not do that. That is not for us to decide. But what we can do is just give the information about what the potential ramifications could be to the person, and beyond the safety ramifications. I would say first and foremost, talk to a lawyer before signing any document, and do your research to make sure that that you're doing what's in the best interest of you and your family, because it is your right to say no, and in some cases the people in this pipeline easement didn't have that opportunity, because of eminent domain, and we could go on and on about that, but I just want to stress to folks, when you're either selling or buying a home, make sure you ask these questions, and if you're and if you want to sign a lease with a company, make sure you ask those important questions. Make sure you talk to your mortgage company. Make sure you talk to your insurance company, because in some cases you could be in violation of your insurance contract. Just make sure you do these things before signing anything. Because it's going to serve you well. We often have people email us and say, well, we don't know if we should buy this home. And we just have to say, look, you know what? It's not for us to decide. You need to make that decision on your own. But what we can do is give you the information that we have. And so the information that you've provided for us, George, with the risk assessment and the cloud image, and all of this information is really important. And I want to mention again, we mentioned it a little bit yesterday, but there is a case right now with the Safety 7 group. And I'm going to go ahead and put it back up on the screen here so folks know. These are a bunch of residents that have this risk imposed on them, and they are trying to make it safer for them and their families, and are working to do that in this case for Safety 7. So if folks want to donate, there is a GoFundMe. We have it up on the screen right now. Please do so, because I know from just experience that the court cases can be really expensive. And so we wish them the best of luck, and we hope that the result of this would be that somebody in a position of power, whether it be the governor, whether it be PUC or DEP, would step up and say, you know what? This project is so wrought with problems, and it just puts the people of Pennsylvania at too much risk for no benefit. So so George, I want to thank you again for coming on today and joining us, and for letting people know about the risks to pipelines. We're not doing this to scare folks. We just want to make you aware of what's in your backyard so you can question it. And hopefully get some change in for your family, if that's what you require. So thanks so much for coming on again, and we'll see you guys next Thursday at noon for our next lunch hour. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jillian. Bye-bye.
Thanks, George. Bye.